It is Monday, July 8th, and I'm in the French River at Loon's Landing Cottages. And I've chosen Loon's Landing as my put-in to paddle the 18-mile island loop, which is a roughly 75-kilometer loop trip with a dozen or so portages along the way, depending upon water levels. For the first 2 days, I'll be heading from west to east through a crown land section, before then heading south and returning west through the French River Provincial Park proper and through the notoriously beautiful 5-mile rapids section. So today's plan is to head across Dry Pine Bay, tackle the 2 portages that lead into 18-mile Island Bay, head north through that bay, and then run my way east across Ouellette Rapids, and then find a campsite in that crown land section to the east of those rapids. It's around 10:30 right now, and there's some wind, cloud, sun as well, and it looks like it should be a pretty straightforward day. All right, time to get paddling. Just past 11 a.m. now, and I've left Loon's Landing, and I'm paddling across Dry Pine Bay for my first portage, a 200 meter. And it's not far, it's maybe a kilometer, I can see it. And wow, what a perfect day for paddling. No wind, I mean, barely a breath of it. And the sky is a great mix of cloud and I guess blue sky, but it does feel hazy today. The sun does feel filtered. And coming in at the distance here, what do I see? A seaplane. I've just finished the portage at Stony Rapids and just came back to the put-in to grab camera gear and also to film the rapids as they empty out into Dry Pine Bay. Along the portage, you can see the rapids actually fall at quite an elevation and gather a bit of steam. They're a little bit slower coming out at the end here, but midway through the portage, the rapids are no joke. I'd hate to fall in at the top. Anyway, everything's at the other side. I'm gonna get my gear, head back to the end of the portage and do the short paddle to the next portage, which I think is 60 or 90 meters or so. What a beautiful little spot. That 200 meter portage wasn't bad at all, but the put-in was very challenging. I'm by myself and the water's moving at a pretty good clip where the put-in is, and the rock face is also quite steep, slanting downwards, so getting a foothold was difficult, but I tied off the canoe and managed to get it loaded no problem. Then paddled across the river where I encountered a swift. I did unload the canoe and do the short 60 meter portage, although in hindsight I probably could have got my feet wet and lined the canoe up beside the swift. But there was a tricky part at the beginning where the water was rushing, and I just thought, you know what, I'm not in a hurry, and I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'm alone. Anyway, so I'm now done the 60 meter portage, and I am legit on 18-mile bay, which means I've got about a 2.5 hour paddle to the Ouellette Rapid portage, and I think my campsite's on that portage or just after it, so I'm making really good time. It's just 1 o'clock right now. The weather's holding out, and the bugs aren't too bad. But I am going to get going before the day gets too long in the tooth and try to get camp set up early because it's been a long day already. Whew, bugs are bad. I've decided to press on and head further east along the Crown Land portion. I am now upstream of Ouellette Rapids, and I've got about another hour and a half to paddle to get to the campsite I'm aiming for. It's presently 4:23, and I hope to be at the campsite by 6 p.m. I have made it to my campsite, and tonight I'm camped on a Crown Line campsite, just sort of a rocky outcrop looking out onto an enormous bay in the North Channel. And today's paddle was 16 kilometers with 3 portages and 1 swift. And let's see, took me about 6 hours to get here from the put-in. Of course, that includes filming and dodging the dozens of jet skis that inhabit the French River. I think I saw 2 boats and probably 24 jet skis. It's just, there's just a lot of jet skis here. Anyway, I hope to leave that behind me tomorrow once I head further east along this North Channel here. But gosh, it's almost 6:45 right now, so I'm going to eat something. I'm going to get Mason fed, and I think I'm going to be in bed early tonight. I'm going to skip the fire and get up early tomorrow and try to head east across this North Channel before the wind comes up. So I think that's going to be it for me tonight. I'm going to drink some water and just try to rest up. I'm still feeling it from all that heat today, and I think sleep will be the best thing I can do for my body right now. Anyway, thanks for coming along on day 1, and hope to see you on day 2. Good morning. Around 6:30 now, and I got up around 5:30 this morning. And last night, wow, the rain and the thunder started around 11:30, and the lightning show last night was very impressive. I was in the tent for all of it, and it was a lovely sound. I was a bit worried I was going to wake up to rain, but wow, instead I've woken up to scorching sun. Tent and bug shelter are pretty damp, but all my stuff is dry. I've got coffee number 2 on the boil, and once I've got that in my belly, I'm going to start packing gear up and heading out across this North Channel. I'm eager to get across this big bay and into some narrower waters. There's not a lot of wind on the water right now, but it's still early, and it'd be nice to beat the wind instead of paddle against it. All right, I'm going to get coffee number 2 going and start the pack up. You like the view? All right. You take your time. I'm getting ready to push off here. Going to be heading across this North Channel Bay in an easterly direction. It's around 8:30 right now, and the day hasn't really figured out what it's going to do. There's rain in the forecast, and the clouds don't look particularly welcoming, but there's not a lot of wind, and if I can just get across this bay without wind, I'll take the rain afterwards. Canoe's all loaded. I'm going to hop in and get paddling. I've been on the water for about 2 hours now, and I've managed to get pretty far east on the North Channel. I've taken care of all the big water, and even though I got a later start than I wanted to this morning, the wind's actually been in my favor, and it's been blowing me gently from behind since I left. And the waves aren't big. They're, I wouldn't want to paddle against it, but I have no problem paddling with it, that's for sure. But now the French River is getting a lot more narrow, or at least the upper channel of it here. And it should be sort of a narrow paddle for the rest of the day. So the big water worries are gone for the moment. All I have to do is hope that the wind changes direction for my last 2 days where I'm paddling parallel to this river, but in a westerly direction. Anyway, the day still hasn't figured out what it wants to do. There's storm clouds everywhere. But then, blue sky in between, and the sun peeks through and scorches me for a bit and then returns to sort of storm cloud sky. So rain is in the forecast. I think it's a 40% probability. Anyway, I've covered the stressful part of the water, and the rest of today is just a few portages and narrow river travel, which is my absolute favorite type of travel. I've just reached the 30-meter portage that takes me around this swift. I might be able to line it, but it looks a little tricky. So I just thought I'd do the portage. Well, I've just finished the 30-meter portage, and look at this. Jet skis. Right up the rapid. Right up the rapid. And here comes another one. Yep, wilderness travel in the French River. Well, we're not in the French River yet. Well, not the park anyway. So I've got my canoe loaded up behind me, and it's time to get rolling. I'm gonna follow these guys in the jet ski upriver. Yep, and the horseflies are out too. Wow, everywhere. All right, gotta get rolling. The takeout for this 115-meter portage is not friendly. Whew. I have just finished my last portage of the day, and that was 115 meters, which is not a long distance. And the portage itself, like the main body of the portage, wasn't difficult at all. It was over a ridge, a rocky ridge, and the trail wasn't all that evident because I don't think it's used all that much. But finding the takeout was a challenge, and the takeout that I settled on, I'm not sure was the actual takeout. There's sort of a labyrinth of paths along that portage, and I just paddled to where I thought the takeout would reasonably be and encountered not quite a rock wall, but it was a scramble getting up there. Getting the canoe up was a real challenge. But once everything got staged at the top of the ridge, it was pretty straightforward getting everything across. I saw a couple of guys fishing at the top of the rapid, which was nice. But gosh, you know, when you travel solo, the greatest challenge, I would say, is loading and unloading the canoe when you've got no one to help hold the boat or stabilize it or nowhere to tie it off and there's moving water. It makes me nervous sometimes. The put in here was actually quite good. But the portage prior to this was a little 15-meter liftover. Easy, right? Well, the takeout's a nightmare because there's so much current you can barely get to the spot you want to take out. Of course, there's nowhere to tie the canoe off. And then you're only going 15 meters. And it sounds easy, but when you go to load it, you're loading in current and then lining it up and then getting in the canoe some distance, ahead of the rapid. It just takes a while and makes me nervous because I've got the dog and I have nightmares about watching my canoe drift down a rapid as I stand on the shore helpless. Anyway, none of that happened today. And for the rest of the day, it is all open water paddle. About 10 kilometers, maybe more. We'll see how I feel. I'm not sure if I'll enter the French River Provincial Park proper or whether I'll just sort of make it to the border today. It's 1:45 and it does not look like rain. Cloudy sky, cloud cover, some darker clouds, but no dark clouds. Anyway, I have a nice leisurely 10-kilometer paddle right here. The wind is at my back and all the work for the day is done. So this is just a tremendous feeling after you've worked so hard in the morning and then the afternoon is just paddle, paddle. What a beautiful spot of the French River. Well, I finished paddling for the day. It's 3:30 and I'm at my campsite, and this campsite is an absolute beaut. And I'm so thrilled I found it because it was the third site that I checked out. First one looked decent, but it was just no shade. I mean, just all day sun, all evening sun. It looks sizzling, to be honest. I couldn't do it. And then the second site was on an island, which I would have preferred because I wasn't really in the mood for a fire tonight. It's so hot. And I went to the island site and I looked around There's no tent pad. Like, there's no nothing. There's a fire pit. That's it. Just absolute junk. And then I checked out the third site, and all these sites are official French River Provincial Park sites. I am now in the park, and the third site is magnificent. Not only is it magnificent, but there is enough firewood here for an all-night fire. And the people who collected this firewood also built a starter fire. I'll take you over to it. It's got birch bark, it's got twigs. I mean, you just gotta light it and away you go. So talk about good practices. Whoever you are, thank you for the wood. Thank you for preparing the fire. I don't think I'll use it. I'll leave it for the next person. It's just so hot here. Anyway, I'm finally settled. I've got the tent set up. I've got the bug shelter set up. And the tent pad's not great, but there is a remarkable tent pad just at the back of the site here. And this tent pad is, well, it's Canadian Shield. It is completely flat. It's like somebody came by. It looks like a block of cheese that somebody turned on the side. And you could probably fit 3 or 4 tents up there. And it's probably a great site in rainy weather because it will drain perfectly. The spot where I am, it'll drain, but it might get a little bit soggy. And that's a concern because I believe Hurricane Beryl, the remnants, are going to be paying us a visit tomorrow. So I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but I'm satisfied with where I've set up my tent. And if I have to tough it out here for a day in pouring rain, it's a great site. And the bug tent, it's just the best spot for it. It's pitched perfectly. So much space inside. Mason's inside there right now, crashed out. Anyway, I'm going to keep setting up camp and then maybe grab a nap, but I have to think about dinner. I haven't been eating enough on this trip, and I've got steak for tonight. Been lugging this cooler all over the bloody French River, so I better make use of the fresh meat before it goes off. Well, I just finished up dinner, and I'll tell you, my appetite was just not there. I had a packet of oatmeal for breakfast and a coffee crisp for lunch, and I paddled all day, 20 plus kilometers, and I'm just not hungry, and I'm blaming this on the heat. It was hot today, and oh man, I'm still feeling it. I've drank probably 2 liters of water since I've got to the site, and I still feel dehydrated. So I've got some more percolating right now, and I think I'll drink another liter before I finally call it a night. Anyway, when I got here, got all set up, tent, bug shelter, clothes drying in the canoe, and then I went for a swim, and how good did that feel? Just got clean, put on some new clothes, just feel like $1,000,000 right now. Anyway, Mason's chilling out inside the tent, and he's been fed as well, and it's almost 7 o'clock now, so a couple hours, I think I'll be in bed. So I'm going to dive in the bug tent with Mason and do some reading and just chill out a little bit and take in the sounds of the French River. Good morning, Wednesday morning, and it's just around 5:15, also known as mosquito hour. But I got up at about 4:30 this morning because I'm really quite anxious to get an early start on today. The remnants of this hurricane are coming our way, and the reports I'm getting are really mixed. My SAT device is telling me like less than 1 millimeter of rain between now and 9 p.m. tonight, but when I search it online, I'm getting much more severe weather, and my sister just told me they're getting like, I don't know, 60 millimeters or something of rain in Toronto, which sounds insane. Anyway, I'm going to try to make some progress today before the rain starts, and that way if I have to hunker down tomorrow, I can do it, but I've still made some distance because I still want to finish this trip in 4 days, but if it's 5, that's fine, but if that's 6, that doesn't work for me. Okay, time to get moving. It is about 6:15 and I am out on the water. The bugs have followed us out, so I got to keep paddling. But I am heading towards the 5-mile rapids section of the French River now. And so far, no rain. I'm so glad I was able to pack up not in rain, but there's definitely rain in the air. Light breeze, paddling's good, so I'm gonna make some hay while the sun's shining. Just finished the 100-meter Little Pines portage, and canoe's all loaded up, and now I am heading downstream to the Big Pines portage. Okay, Mason, let's go, bud. Come on. Big Pines portage complete. I think it was about 170. Not difficult, well used. I'm now launching and be heading further downriver to the next set of rapids. I've just completed the double rapids portage, and this is the portage that follows the Blue Chute rapids. And today I ran Blue Chute, and I said I wasn't going to run any rapids on solo trips, but you know, it was pouring rain. There's people at the campsite. Didn't have a chance to scout it. I've run it before. I've done this section of the French 2 times before. But there was a guy on the campsite, a family, and I asked him, I said, how are the rapids looking? And he said, oh, my 8-year-old daughter was swimming in the waves. I said, oh, so not so bad? I was concerned about the water levels. He said, oh, you should be fine. Anyway, so I ran it, unscouted, and there was definitely a pants shitting moment at the top there when I saw the haystacks at the bottom, but just powered through it, took on a bit of water, and made it out alive. But that will be all the rapid running that I'm doing on this trip. So just portaged around double rapids, and this is possibly runnable, maybe in different water levels, but I'm glad to be done it. And I think I've only got one more portage today, which would be fantastic. The rain is here to stay, that's for sure. So I'm trying to get all my paddling done today so I can take a slack day tomorrow when the real rain comes, or when the real rain's forecasted to come. All right, let's take a look at these rapids. I believe I've completed all the portages for the day. The map says there's one 65 meter down the way, but I'm not sure if that's a portage or if it's just a little swifty thing. And I'm very glad to be done these, because with these wet rocks, I almost took a spill just on this last one. And I don't enjoy portaging in the rain. I don't mind paddling in the rain, as long as I got my hat. But portaging in the rain is treacherous. Anyway, right now, I think, as I say, we're done the portages, so it's just going to be paddle, 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 and look for a good campsite downriver that will accommodate the bug shelter, the tent, and also that has some good drainage, because I am a little, not concerned, but apprehensive about the volume of rain that could be falling tomorrow. And I would like to be, battened down when that comes. Also, tomorrow is supposed to be, I think, 15 or 17 degrees, and that's a little cool to be paddling wet. Today, I think, is 22 or 24 degrees, and I'm very comfortable right now. As long as I'm paddling or moving, not cold at all. Wet, but not cold at all. So I want to try to get some kilometers done today. So on Friday, I don't have too long a paddle back to Loon's Landing. Even in rainy weather, the French River is just such a gorgeous place to be. Just wish I could pull up my camera a little bit more, but this rain won't allow that. Okay, just heading down Double Chute now, and this is a runnable rapid, maybe a class 1, maybe. There's some standing waves at the bottom, but they're not too terrible. Oh yeah. Woo. Little splashy. Woo. Okay, and that was the optional 65 meter portage, which I declined. And I believe that is the end of the portages for this trip. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The rain has just stopped, and I'm glad it has, because the wind from behind has picked up a little bit and it was getting a bit of a chill. But I think my new plan is to paddle out today. I've got about 22 or 24 kilometers to go. And it's 11:30 a.m. right now, so it's doable. The only risk is if the wind comes up and the rain comes up again, I'm going to be very cold. And there aren't a lot of campsites between where I am now and my takeout. Anyway, it's a decision I've made. So I'd rather finish one day early and sit around in a bug tent watching the rain fall. Anyway, hopefully this will work out. I've still got a ways to go, and the skies don't look any more friendly. But that's the plan, subject to change. Very cool A-frame cabin right here on this island. I'm just a couple of kilometers away from the power lines, but I came across this beautiful beach, which you don't really see in the French River. And it looks like it's a campsite. Don't know if it's official or not. I'm gonna keep going, but stopped over for a pee break and get some water. But most of the sites along this stretch of the French are not great. This one's a gem. I've just about made it. In fact, 200 meters in front of me is the canoe pass, which will take me back into Dry Pine Bay from the south channel of the French River. And it's been a long day. I put in at just after 6 a.m. and gosh, it's 3 o'clock now. So I'll probably be back at Loon's Landing around 3:30 or around 3:30, I would say. But I've been lucky. It just stopped raining. And although it did rain for 80% of the day, I also had a tailwind for about 80% of the day. So all in all, I can't complain. But I am spent. My hands are raw. My shoulders are killing me. And I am looking forward to getting out of this canoe. And so's the big man down here. He's been very patient all day. We stopped a couple times to let him out and stretch his legs, but I can tell he's not enjoying himself anymore. All right, so once I get through this canoe pass, I just head to the far shore and angle my way north until I reach Loon's Landing. It's nice to be back at Loon's Landing. I had originally planned 4 or 5 days for this trip, but it turned into a 3-day trip because of the promise of hurricane weather starting tomorrow. Today was a long day. Paddled from, north of Little Pine Rapids all the way to Dry Pine Bay. Not sure how far it was, but my hands are pretty raw, lips are dry, and I'm exhausted. But I had a great time this trip, despite the fact the first 2 days were baking with heat and the third day was sort of all-day rain. I had favorable winds. On the way east, I had a wind at my back, and today, for 80% of the way, I also had a tailwind, which greatly helped with the paddle. It was a longer distance, but, it's nice to know you can still do it. Even though it's not your first choice on some trips, once you decide to do something and then you accomplish it, it's a good feeling. So the truck's all loaded. Mason's in there, snoozing in the back seat. And it's time for me to head back to Toronto. So I'm really glad I did this trip. It was a challenging loop for one person to do. And, I think I'll be back. Thanks for coming along. We'll see you on the next one.